Greetings, it's Dr. Annette, publishing pusher, the all-in-body place of encouragement, cultural empowerment. Weekly, she'll engage conversations with entrepreneurs and creators. And these insightful interviews are designed to help us build our businesses, respective brands, ourselves, and to hopefully propel us to that next level of greatness. Big boss. So with no time to waste time, it's officially go time.
Hi, everyone. Dr. Annette, publishing pusher. Today, I'm going to be chatting with a young woman. Call her young, y'all. She's looking good. Cassaundra Webb. How you doing, Cassaundra?
I am great, Dr. Wynn. So happy to be here. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today on your podcast.
Yes. I want to say to everyone, there's a book in you. There's at least a book, one book in you. Now, will you tell that story? I don't know. But you know, we love it when people do tell their story and they're willing to bring that story to life. Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision, make it plain, therein you will be able to run with it. So that is what our author has done today. So Cassaundra, I would like to ask you to share with us a little bit about you, how you kind of have moved through life to get to this point that we are going to be talking about the book without talking about the book.
Well, yes, I do have a story, and I truly agree with you. Everybody has a story because nobody would believe I wrote a book and truly know that I am on a podcast talking about it. COVID was a mind-changing thing, but it was a shifting in the atmosphere for me. You know, I did hair for like 27 years. And when COVID hit, the pandemic hit, we all were sitting in a salon. It was 10 of us. And we realized early that something was going on. You know, all of a sudden the client just slowly started disappearing or not showing up. And being a hairstylist, we were some of the very few people, the last to close down. And we were sitting around talking about like, okay, they're talking about COVID and people dying. So what are we going to do? And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to write a book. And I just spoke because I didn't know. I only thing I ever known what I was going to do, I knew I wanted to do hair. And my mom told me, no, I had to go to college, and I did. Went to college. It went 3 years, but I left because I wanted to do hair. And I began doing hair. I did hair for 27 years, like I said. And when COVID hit, I'm like, God, what am I going to do? You know, because it was scary. You didn't know people was dying. People was actually dying. All we knew was people was not coming to get their hair fixed like they normally fix. So it reminded me of so much of 9/11. There was another shifting in the atmosphere for me. And 9/11 hit, and pandemic, damn it, it's like the world just completely shut down. So when I told God I was going to write a book, then I said, okay, God, what am I going to write a book about? So I started writing down, talking about marriage. And so many people was married during the COVID, and so many people were stuck in the house with their husband. So it was something that they didn't really want to do, is to be in the house with their spouse, because you're not used to being with your spouse. And I was just fortunate. Mine had to continue to work because he worked for Georgia Power. So he had to continue because lights went out. They no matter what, they just like the airline, they have to go to work. I wrote my book during the transition of COVID, and when we was able to go back to work. And I was afraid. Clients was calling me because other clients wasn't taking other people's clients. So I had to go in and take my own clients. So I got a suite. And I did nothing like most people did. You do one at a time. Every 2 hours, you do somebody else. Every 2 to 3 hours, you did a client. So I went on with the book. I promise you, I didn't know what I was going to write about. So I kept writing. And see, people don't realize they don't know how to start. But I started with my notes in my phone. I put my notes down. And after getting so much note, I said, okay, I'm tired now. So now, okay, God, now what am I supposed to do next? I got to find an editor. I found an editor. The lady gave me my book back. She was a friend of the family and told me she didn't charge me enough money. So she gave me my story back. And I'm looking at her like, oh God, she said, no, you're gonna make too much money off of this book. And I didn't charge you enough. So she didn't have the heart to give me another price. So I just took it and I went on and I skipped on. Manifesting things in your life and saying what you want, because you got to know what you want. We all know what we don't want. You got to know what you want in life. And I knew what I wanted. And when the family friend gave me my book back, I just tried to figure out what in the world I'm going to do. Sitting in the salon one day, one of my clients told me she could edit the book. So she kept it for a few minutes and she told me, she said, I just can't do this. She said, I have a friend that owed me a favor. Okay. So my client told me that she had somebody that she could edit my book. And when she got it, she couldn't edit it either, which was fine with me. But she said, but I have a friend that owed me a favor and I'll let him edit. That's what he does part-time. And I did. I gave him my book and he was a minister. And I'm like, wow. You know what, God, you have orchestrated everything about this book. But when he started editing the book, he would say to me, he said, you wrote this book? I said, yes. He said, well, I can't believe you put this in words. And, me not knowing the jewel that I had anyway. And he did edit the book and he kept about a month or so. And he finished editing it. And then he gives it back. He don't give it back, but he tells me, I didn't charge you enough money, so you're going to have to pay me so much money an hour to finish editing my book. And so I took my book. I told him, no, send me my book because I didn't mind giving you that money, but you don't tell me, you're not going to edit my book. Making a long story short. So he gave me my book back and I put it in PDF so he couldn't keep it. He didn't realize that. But when I got my book back, I took it and I let a friend of mine finish editing it. And she did. That was a close friend of mine. But I got a book. That's a story that I didn't know I had inside me. So like she said, we all have a story. And, the reason why I wrote my book, like I said, I want to change the worldview about being married. We as women have to think different. A lot of times, a lot of people get married, but we don't ever think about being a wife. And a wife is something totally different than being just getting married. I've learned that it was different because multiple times God told me in my progress of being married before I got married that I wasn't wife material. And I'm looking at God, I think I'm all that in a bag of chips. But after so many times he's telling me that I wasn't wife material, I summoned to God. Well, okay, then God, you make me wife material. Dating the guy that I was dating, he said he didn't want to be married. But see, we get mad as women and want to give ultimatum. I didn't give him an ultimatum because I knew I heard God's voice when God spoke to me. And he told me I was not wife material. And then when I read the book, Power of a Praying Wife, I read 5 pages and I shut it because I was not qualified to be a wife because I was going off of learned behavior from, my parents' marriage and other people around me marriage that I saw. And see, that's something that I didn't want.
So Cassaundra, before we go really deep into this, do you think that we have examples that we see?
Yes.
That we live amongst and we see, and we even see things that don't necessarily kind of sometimes make sense to us. How easy was it for you to see those things? And did that make you think that because of it, you shouldn't get married? Like the things that you saw?
It did. I didn't want to get married for years. Growing up in the type of environment that I grew up in, that's why I didn't want to get married. Watching my mother go through her husband because it was some domestic violence going on in there. And I never understood why my mother never left my father. But she had 6 kids. And so as I got older, I understood why she didn't leave. But still, I believe in the prayer of God. God answered prayers. And she stayed married to him for 28 years after her youngest child graduated from high school and she left. But I tell you this, being a wife And when I wrote my book and my mother read my book, and she was kind of perturbed about it, but she said she had not left my father. Because sometimes God give you husband to bring to them, because none of us are perfect. And true enough, he wasn't perfect, but like she said, she was a wife. If she had known to be more of a wife than to just be married to him, she would have stayed with him. Because shortly after she divorced, he died. He died from a broken heart.
Yeah. I mean, life happens.
Yeah.
We all have a free will. We make choices. We don't know the outcome often on the other side of that choice. We can then choose when it doesn't flow the way we want to. We can choose to beat ourselves up, or we can choose to say, I can make it still in the Lord. You know, I'm still strong in the Lord. And, you know, sometimes looking back doesn't help us.
Right. Right. But yeah, but not looking back, like some things that I've done, I don't really look back. I had to learn to ask God to give me amnesia for the things that was going on in my marriage. Because, you know, we can hold a grudge. I mean, I know I can hold a grudge and get mad forever. But a lot of times I had to learn during my journey of marriage. God said, forgive, and if you don't forgive, he won't forgive you. So that was one of my things I had to learn to do, and I did. But my husband hold a grudge till kingdom come, and you know I had to learn to deal with that. I had to learn to accept him for who he was, because I thought he was gonna be perfect. Yeah, I'm like everybody else. I thought I was gonna marry my Boaz, my knight in shining armor, because they led us to believe that fairy tale. Once you get married and you go off and you live happy ever after, because no one ever tells you the truth. My mama didn't.
Do you think it's because they didn't know the truth? I mean, because a lot of things are, do you think that a lot of things are just traditions, generational things that people have been exposed to? And I'm of the opinion you don't know what you don't know until you meet somebody that happens to know that thing. So at what point do people get the knowledge? At what point do people connect with somebody or be in a different grouping with people where they really can learn something else?
Yeah, it's about your atmosphere. But see, I knew what I didn't want, and I spoke what I didn't want. But looking at other people marriage and the marriage that I was in as a child, they all was so much similar. Then when I got ready to get married, oh, good, you're gonna get married. And then when I got married, I'm like, what's so good about this? It's the same thing that you guys have gone through, and nobody told you. You see, I just lived it. You see what I'm saying?
But you're gonna be the voice to help others who are coming along to, if they're in it, they can look at it differently. If they haven't gone through it, they can get some perspective of expectation. And do you think that in that process that communication is going to be essential in connecting with that person if they so choose?
Communication is key. But one thing that I've learned in my marriage, I'm glad I had a relationship with God first. Because like I said, I dated my husband for 4 years prior to getting married. And when I started changing, he pretty much stayed the same. And I told him I wanted to be married. And he politely told me, I don't want to be married. I'm like, okay, then that's fine. But like I said, I didn't give him an ultimatum. I decided to move on because I heard God's voice, and God told me I was not wife material. And he was right. I was not wife material, wanting to be married. But he led me on a journey. And the day after I said I do, you know what my husband did? He hollered at me. And all I could say was sugar, honey, iced tea. But I knew I had that conversation with God that I was the one that he needed to work with. And I allowed God to work on me being a wife and not just be married. I just did not want what everybody else had gotten. I wanted to be that wife, that virtuous woman that they talk about in the Bible. He who finds a wife finds a good thing. That I want to be better than that Ruby, that, I'm worth more than Ruby. I wanted that. And I asked God to make me be that.
I think,
so,
one of the things you said, you keep mentioning is what you ask the Lord for, having that relationship with in the Lord to tell him the things that you so desire, but you still have to choose with your free will, right? Whether you're
Right.
going to do the things that are required that the Lord says can be for you.
Yeah, yeah. I made choices because, you know, growing up, I didn't marry when I was young. I was 38 when I got married. So I was kind of pretty much older, and I didn't date a whole lot of guys. But the one thing that happened to me in my journey of being young was a heartache.
Mm.
I had a heartache. The guy broke up with me, got somebody pregnant. And that was one of the best things to me that changed me. I liked me. I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted. I learned that through that heartache. I just didn't keep pondering over that heartache. Once I got over it, I focus on me because I got that from my parents. You know, like I said, you know, you treat people how you want to be treated. And if you don't love yourself, can't anybody else love you either. And that's what they used to tell me. And through that journey of being disappointed and a broken heart for myself, that day I stood in church and I cried and I couldn't stop. And I went to church just so I can stop crying because I was tired of crying. And those tears are real. And I just told him, Jesus, you stop these tears. Now I won't cry no more. But to me, in an instant, those tears stopped. And so we all go through heartache and disappointment and just really don't know how to handle it. Like I said, that's why I always say we have to put God in our relationship, whether you're married or not. Put God first. And I know I don't want to sound like the Bible, but just how it was for me, so that I didn't have to have all those different heartaches and disappointment that comes with being a marriage. Adversities are really real in a marriage. And in the end of my 23 years, I know exactly my mission. I know my aim with God for me because I had to change this person, this man that God had given me. Like I said, we all make mistakes. So I've learned not to judge no matter what. I'm that strong person. I'm like, okay, let me pray about this thing. Because God knows I don't like this either. I'm just like everybody. I don't like being married. I'm like, God, are you really sure we supposed to be married and two become one?
So
But
how does this two thing become one really work?
having a relationship, communication. You got to communicate. You know, you got to let people be who they are. You got to love who you are. You have to know who you are. And you got to know whose you are. So those was good points for me. Because I learned some of it through my journey, but I learned a lot of it before I got married. Like I said, I didn't get married till later on in life. And I had a whole lot of disappointments in life. From being in my household until, you know, even when you get married, you get disappointed. So I had to find something that's going to make me feel whole. And when I learned to love myself, hey, it was nothing a man could tell me. I mean, a man told me one time my neck was going to be wrinkled when I got old. I didn't know if he was telling the truth or not, but I just don't listen to negative things. I focus on the positive. And if you don't have anything good to say, I'm a believer. Don't say nothing at all.
So in a relationship, in a marriage relationship, how important is it? We talk about communication. How important is it to bridle your tongue?
It's very important to me because sometimes some things it's not even worth saying, even though you don't get along. I mean, you can't change people. You can't make me change my view. That's how I feel. You have to accept people for who they are. And if they feel different, you know, you say what you have to say and you go your merry way.
So your book title is Many Are Called to Be Married, but Few Become Wives.
Yes, because we all get married. And to me, like when my husband got diagnosed with congestive heart failure during COVID, it wasn't no peaches and cream in my house either, just like a whole lot of people. But I had to learn to, regardless of what was going on inside our marriage, I still do what I'm supposed to do as a wife. Because he got sick. And I didn't understand why he was sick, but he was going to work, coming home saying that he was tired. And I didn't understand. I'm like, okay, let's go to the doctor. He was like, he'll go later. And then it got worse and worse. My lights just went out. That's why I'm looking so strange. I'm like, why my lights just go out? But I don't know why. But I'm sorry. And he was becoming very ornery during his sickness stuff. He didn't understand. And see, that's something hard too, because I'm like, I don't understand what's going on with you. You don't understand what you're going with. And I'm telling you to go to the doctor, but you're not. We're getting older and you become much more ornery in your older age. So I had to learn to keep my mouth shut a lot of times during those trials and errors of communication when we were not seeing eye to eye. And I would just, later on, after we calm down, I'll talk to him and I just tell him my view. I don't ask him. I just tell him this is how I felt. And I'm like, no, you listen to me. Because if we both going to be talking at the same time, we're not listening to each other. So let's just wait until we calm down. And we both do that.
And I think it's important, your example of we're not going to be in agreement with everything that the other person says and or does. And being willing to step back and know when to speak and when not to speak is very important. Because I think sometimes if you speak too fast, you wind up saying something that, you're going to regret.
Right. And I'm one of those people, I don't like to regret nothing. And I really focus on what I'm saying to people because I'll think about it. Because I don't want to say, I'm sorry. And I will if I have to. But before I have to say that, I won't say anything.
I'm the same way.
No, because I mean, like I told him, it's not worth it. I mean, like I said, I thought it was a joke when God said two become one. I'm like, God, this is the hardest thing. This marriage is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yes, I've been married 39 years, so yes, I can relate. In respect to your book, many are asked to be married, but few become wives. Why did you decide to write this particular book and give it this title?
It was during the election. And, everybody on TV talking about how, the stars and everybody getting a divorce and, on the news and people are just not agreeing. And you married and said for better or worse to that person, right? And when I saw that woman snatch her hand from her husband from the on national television, because it was worldwide. And I'm looking like, wow. Because a true wife wouldn't do that. Because don't think every time I go out with my husband, it is peaches and cream. It is not. It's many times I was upset with him when I walked into work, okay? And I worked with a bunch of women. And I was the only woman that was married. Maybe one or two was in no married, but me being one of the older ones, people look at you and pay attention. And that day I may be a little quiet, but I still socialize. No one ever knows what's going on in my household. I don't carry my household to work with me. And that's how I got that title.
I like when you said, I don't carry my life to my work with me. And I think that's one of the things I'm a college professor. I always tell my students is that you go to the work because they hired you to do a job. They didn't hire you to become friends with the people there, but you can be friendly to everybody, meaning you can speak to everybody. You can say good morning, and it'll keep a lot of things down.
Right, it does. And like I said, even if I'm still upset when I get home, I cook, I clean, I do whatever I'm supposed to do as a wife for my husband when he come home. I'm still gonna make him feel like the man that he belongs inside his home. Even if I'm mad or don't agree, I'm not gonna torture him, throughout a day or two or a month or two, because I'm mad. I said what I had to say. I said my piece. And I'm going to leave it right there, whether we agree or not.
So you really believe in addressing situations and not going to sleep being upset.
Well, the part about going to sleep, I can go to sleep upset. It's okay with me.
Okay.
That doesn't bother me.
Okay.
But I'm going to say what I have to say before I go to bed.
Okay.
And if he say what he have to say before he go to bed, if I don't like it, I just don't like it. But I'm gonna go to sleep.
So we don't have to like everything the other person says, because they're not gonna like everything that we say.
Right. Well, no, like I said, I've been married 23 years. And like I said, and being an older person getting married, because I didn't marry young, like I said. I was already, at 38, you know what you want, you know what you're gonna do, what you ain't gonna do. When you come to a relationship and being in a relationship with a man. So I didn't go in there with that attitude.
That's good.
I wanted to.
Go ahead.
I wanted to be a wife. I just didn't want to get married. I just wanted something different. I done seen multiple friends get married, adultery and all that stuff happen, all that goes on. You get married and you don't talk, and then you decide that, you're going to take the children take the children from that person. No, I don't believe in all that. So I just like,
So how can we distinguish the difference from being married and becoming a wife?
Manifesting what you want. I want peace. I don't want nothing else in no relationship, whether I'm married or not, even with friendships. I was at work 10 and 12 hours a day with a bunch of women. So I don't know what it's worth being in a place with a whole bunch of women or coming home to unhappily married. So I chose to be happy no matter where I go. I don't let anybody determine what my day is going to be like. I remember asking my husband one time, do I make you happy? He said, no, sometimes. You know what I told him? That's your fault, because you should never wake up in the morning and allow somebody else to determine your day.
That's right.
He looked at me like, I said, hey, and I just hopped my little happy self on out the house. Because like I said, my husband can hold a grudge to kingdom come. I watched my mom and dad married. I'm like, I know what I didn't want. I watched my aunts not be married, 5 of them not be married, and in and out of relationship. I knew what I didn't want.
I think it's very important with your book and what you're doing, that you're going to help, quite a few people on the journey. And what do you expect for someone who's reading your book to gain from it? Maybe share 1 or 2 points offhand that you think that they should have as a takeaway from your book.
Takeaway was marriage is a mind changing. It's mind changing. That's what it was for me. It was a mind changing. And you have to not live in your past, because you won't ever have a future. You can't growing up in your parents' household and then going into your own household and putting the same rules. You can't do that. It's not going to work. My mother stayed with me for about a year, not because she couldn't afford to. She was a travel nurse and she was staying here in Atlanta, and it was 4 of us staying here. And so she chose to stay in the house with me, which was fine. And my husband allowed it for a year. But when the day came when I had to tell my mama she had to get out, oh my God, I just thought I was going to fall through the floor. But what he said made sense. When a man get married, he cleaves to his wife. And when a wife get married, she cleaves to her husband. So I had to tell my mom she had to get out my house. And I think my mom was kind of perturbed for a minute, but he didn't say it in an evil. He didn't mean any malice or anything behind it. He just said that he didn't feel like he at home. He felt like he was in prison. Because everything, he can't walk in the kitchen by himself. He can't go to the den with his trophy. He always had to be dressed and act like he was going somewhere when he was just going downstairs in his household.
And everybody should be comfortable where they pay the rent or the mortgage, right?
mom had a house. And like I said, she didn't really have to stay here. She just chose to stay with me because I was the oldest daughter. And my mom, I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I'm not really I didn't really discuss it with him. I just said, can my mom stay with us? And he's like, oh yeah, but she my mom. So I'm like, okay, I'm happy. But like he said,
lessons learned, right?
Yes, lesson learned.
In your book, you said at the beginning of your introduction, you mentioned that you started talking about marriage at a young in your early 20s, seriously, but you were talking about having that marriage to God, but that you didn't want to be a nun. So what did you mean when you said that you would marry God?
And I was young and looking at my mother and father married. I just didn't want to. I didn't care if I married a man or not. I wouldn't even think about a man. I just like, I'm gonna if I get married, I'm gonna marry God. And because I didn't understand what I was saying. But as I got older, having God in my relationship. You see, I didn't grow with marriage in my parents. God wasn't in my parents' relationship. And I realized that. So I've always been a person that goes to church and I listen very well. And an older lady told me long time ago, every man wants to be needed. So if you marry a man, God will give you a husband. But sometimes the husband that he gives you is to bring him to him. And I can truly say that. Me marrying my husband, he's an excellent husband. But the God part of it, I see a big difference now. Me saying my prayers and being true to who I was in our relationship. He's a changed man. And like I said, he wasn't bad, but he had his issues. And I'm like, okay, God, really? So I had to pray a lot. Because the man I fell in love with him. But the man that God got me to allow me to get to know, I'm like, okay, God, really?
It's all a journey. It's all a lesson.
Yes.
You mentioned in your book, that you hope to change the worldview on the relationship of marriage with the new era that we are approaching. What do you see right now as the worldview, and what would that change look like?
You see a lot of things on television, a lot of things that when I grew up, I didn't see. I saw Leave It to Beaver, Leave It to Beaver, the Cleavers, that perfect marriage. Now you see any and everything. All you hear and you see about marriage now is getting a divorce. It's okay to divorce. It's okay to get married just to get a divorce. But why not? Why are you gonna marry? And I know God says it's better to marry than live into sin, but you got a choice of who you're gonna marry. If a man's not gonna make you feel like the woman that you need to be, feel like, then don't marry him. If you marry a man and you got to change him, don't marry him, because you can't change a man. And a lot of women thinking now he'll change when they get married, and that's not true. I've spoken to so many young girls meeting guys on the internet, strangers from different states, and I'm like, you travel to see him? She said yes. And I'm like, but you're 26 and he's 35, and I know that's you're too young. To me, she was too young. And I told her that. I'm like, you're too young. But I said, but you don't know him. He lives in another state. I said, well, did you go to his house? She said, no, we met up at a hotel. See, it's too much of that going on. And now it's so much sex trafficking going on. So these people because they meet strangers. You let strangers in your house. We eat food from a stranger. Those are things that we was taught not to do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't talk to strangers. All that's going on. And these girls are young. And the examples, they don't get too many examples like we did. Some people say, you act like a lady, he'll treat you like a lady. But most of the stuff I see on television, it wouldn't be considered a lady in my eyes. So what I want to get the young people, girls to quit wanting to get married, want to be a wife, we don't teach our children to want to be a wife, our young ladies to be a wife. That's something that we don't do. Okay, marriage is good. Marriage is good. They don't tell you marriage is a whole lot of work. Marriage is a whole lot of work. Because when you read my book, that's what that book talks about. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of things that's going to happen that you're not going to like. So my relationship with God first made a big difference. Mm-hmm. My father sowed a lot of seeds in me that I thought he was crazy when I was young. I'm like, put God first. I'm like, okay, whatever. God, God gonna order your step, whatever. But when I got older, especially when I got married, I saw all them words that he told me. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean out to your own understanding. Because I didn't understand marriage. I'm like, I'm married now, God. Just make all of that me. Because I know when I was young, I said I wasn't going to man hollering at me. Oh, baby, that ain't gonna happen. But it happens. A lot of things in a marriage happens that people don't say. Oh, he cheated on me and I'm a divorce him. He cheated on you and you got to figure out what you're doing wrong or right to cause him to go on the outside. And if it's not you and he's doing it because he wants to, then you have every right to divorce him. But I have a lot of friends get married. Oh, I ain't cooking. Oh, I'm not doing that. My husband called me 3 o'clock in the morning and said he hungry, and I can be mad. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna feed him. He's out stopping and buy him a sandwich. I may not cook him a meal, but he's gonna eat.
And I think I love that, one of the things we have to realize is that every marriage looks different. Yes. No two marriages are the same. The two people in each marriage are not the same. We don't all think the same. We're not going to engage the same. But what works in each marriage to build it is between those two people. So I know we can give people some perspective. We can share even our examples. But when it comes down to it, let's hopefully, like with your book, you're going to give them enough insight that they are gain some truths about what marriage really is. They will understand some challenges and responsibilities, like you said, that are required to become that wife, and that there are many realities that they have to look at. And I think those are the things that you in your book. Many are asked to be married, but few become wives. When they gain those insights that you have shared, then their eyes will at least be open. Right. So that they can make a more informed decision before they decide to be married, but choose to be married to become a wife, not just to be married to say that you're just connected with someone.
Right. The women that I've had to read my book and they gave me remarks on it, a lot of them read it and they didn't put the views on the internet. But my friends that read it, I had one friend that was married for 20-some years and ended up getting a divorce. And she said she had read my book prior doing her marriage, and maybe she wouldn't have divorced her husband. She said she would have fought harder for her marriage. He cheated, but men don't. A lot of them do. I ain't saying mine does, yours do, but a lot of men cheat. I cook for my husband. I serve my husband, and that's something different. And I had a lot of friends, realizing, serving your husband, make him feel like, I don't care, mine is not no king, but I make him feel like a king when he come home. And that's what we need to teach our young girls. You can't get mad and stay mad for days at a time. That young lady is going to see that. When she goes, she's going to remember that. I remember a lot of things in my mother and father marriage. But it was things that I didn't want to do, and I made sure I didn't do them.
I think you have a great story that you're going to share and are sharing with many. As we get ready to close, yes, our time went that fast. As we get ready to close, Cassaundra, could you tell everyone how they can get your book? And then I want you to leave a final empowering thought with the listener.
Google the book, the name of the book. Many are asked to be married. Very few become wives. It is on Amazon.
So I want to thank again Cassaundra for coming in today, sharing with us from her life, her journey, and reach out, get a copy of her book. Many are asked to be married, but few become wives. I probably said that wrong, but y'all forgive me. But listen, say it.
Right.
Oh, did I say it right? Okay. Get a copy of the book. Get a copy for your girlfriend too. Why don't you get a copy? Y'all get a copies and get together and have a book discussion about this book, okay? I guarantee you, you will be enriched and probably freed in some areas as well. So again, Cassaundra, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Remember, everyone, this is Dr. Annette, Publishing Pusher. I like to say to you, remember, you are blessed to be a blessing, and you are the visible manifestation of his invisible presence. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to Dr. Annette's Chat Podcast, brought to you by E18 Publishing. Be sure to stay tuned in for future conversations and engagements. Check out the website, e18publishing.org, and subscribe to this show on your preferred podcast app. Shout out to 95 for the production. Be blessed and be a blessing. Peace.